Myself Rajeev Pandey. I am an advocate and I work on this subject for several years. And Article 370 and Article 35A, I have tried to understand the genesis and other things. I am going to speak first on the nature of the Article 370. This is the first part in which I am going to speak about that. Article 370 is the most debated topic in Indian Constitution for last 70 years. Because when it started, there was some issues in 1950. They tried to create some kind of anomaly on the basis of Article 370. So it was debated across the country and is the most debated topic in India. There are some very important aspects of Article 370 which I am going to talk about. You know, the supporters, which so-called supporters of Article 370 talks about that this is must, this gives some kind of special rights to Jammu and Kashmir. This is kind of a link between Indian state and Jammu and Kashmir. All these things were created in last 60 years because of the vote bank politics and because of other reasons. But I am not going to talk about that who said what, who did what. Let us go by the legal documents on which this whole article was added, and this whole genesis is depending upon that. We all know that India and Pakistan, British dominion was divided by the Indian Independence Act, and as per that it was divided, and rest all the princely estates were told to decide that whether they want to join India or Pakistan. On that basis, there were some conditions. One, that king has to decide. Second, there should be a geographical continuity. And after that, the signature of the king was enough. But if suppose there is no geographical continuity, like in Hyderabad case, which everybody will talk about along with Jammu and Kashmir, Hyderabad has no border. They were not sharing border with the Pakistan. So even if their Nawab wanted to join, Nizam wanted to join, they could have not joined. So on 26th October 1947, Jammu and Kashmir acceded with India by signing Instrument of Accession. You understand that Instrument of Accession was a standard document. Every princely estate signed the same agreement, which was signed by the Maharaja Hari Singh in the case of Jammu and Kashmir. It was signed. I will not go into that why it was delayed or not. It was signed thereafter, as we know that after the independence in our country, the constitution making process started. There was a constituent assembly in which Jammu and Kashmir people were also there. Their representatives were there. So we adopted our constitution on 26 January 1950. Before that, during the Constituent Assembly debates, some people, I personally feel 2-3 people, there was no demand of any separate article by the people of the Jammu and Kashmir, by the people of this country, but certain people thought something and they brought this idea that there should be an article because of 2-3 reasons. What I understand, if you read, this is the shortest possible debate on Article 370 in Constituent Assembly. It was a 306A was the draft article in the Constituent Assembly, and which was converted into Article 370, and their argument was only 3. One, that the lands are still under control of Pakistani irregular and armies. There were some areas which were under control of the Pakistan and their irregular people. Second, so whole Jammu and Kashmir was not with us, because before the signing of the Instrument of Accession, Pakistan through their proxies and their army, they captured some part of the Jammu and Kashmir. In that, Mirpur, Muzaffarabad and Gilgit-Baltistan was there. So that the first argument was that the whole Jammu and Kashmir is not with us, so let us wait for some time. Second argument was that our former Prime Minister Pandit Nehru ji took that matter to United Nations. So they thought that what other country will talk about, that India, which is claiming to be a democratic country, it has annexed completely, though the part of that was not with India and the issue was with the Security Council. So for that, they decided that there should be some interim provision. And in that mindset, this Article 306A was put for draft article, and then finally Article 370 was put in our constitution. Now you have to understand, talking about who did what, who said what, these things are not material at all. We have to go by that. That Article 370, what it speaks. Let us read word by word what is written in Article 370. Does it talk about any special status? Does it talk about any other things? We all know that under Indian Constitution, there is a mechanism developed for making law. So there are three lists: union list, state list, and concurrent list. Union list, the subjects mentioned in the union list, only parliament can make law. A state list, only a state can make law. And concurrent list, both a parliament as well as the state can make law, but if any law is of the parliament, that will supersede the state law. So there are three lists. When we were trying to make the mechanism, they said that for the interim provision, we should create some mechanism in that, as we know that in the instrument of accession, which was signed by all the princely estates, three things were given to the center. One was the foreign policy, defense, and telecommunication. So in Indian Constitution, this apparatus is there for the state, union, and as well as concurrent list, that who can make law for what. So at that time, as per the instrument of accession, they said three things is given to the center. So they said for these three things, if parliament is making law, there is only consultation is required for the from the Jammu and Kashmir government or their Vidhan Sabha legislative assembly. So Article 370 does not confer any other things except creating a legislative mechanism. In that they said that union list, which is mostly these three subjects, so these three parliament will have power to make law. For rest of the things which can fall in a state list or concurrent list, they said you cannot make law until there is a concurrence by the state government, by the state legislative assembly. So if you read Article 370, except this, there is nothing is given to Article 370 at that time. I am talking about 1950. You understand? In the second part, I am going to talk what kind of constitutional fraud were committed and what could have been the implication and what is the implication on the basis of Article 370 they did after adoption of our Indian Constitution. So at that time it was decided, let us keep this article for some time, and that's why if you read the whole Indian Constitution, you will not find in the head note itself it was written interim provision. It was intended that the moment this time is over, the moment Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir adopt and accepts, this has to go. So it was an interim provision, in long and short, it was only that the state list was extended, all the concurrent list subject was put in the state list because the concurrence was required, and union list was as normally for the whole country, and that was about the defense, telecommunication, defense, communication, and foreign policies. So it was very specific at that time that this is an interim provision. Now what happened? If you go in part 21 of the Indian Constitution, you will find that on top it is written temporary, transitional, and special provisions, and thereafter Article 370 starts. So people misunderstood that the special word is for Article 370 also. We all know that Indian Constitution was adopted in 1950. The special word was added by 13th Amendment, I think after 1960. So a special provision has nothing to do with the Article 370 because that was the addition much later when we adopted Article 370. It was because of there was a lot of problems was going with there was some settlement with the Naga Council and all, and then 371 and several states came in which some special rights were given to protect and preserve their identity. So the special provision written on the top of the chapter 21, temporary, transitional and special provision, that special word has nothing to do with the Article 370. So Article 370, it is very clear that Article 370 was an interim provision and only for the time being, because if you read the text down, you will come to know that why I am saying it was interim provision. First of all, in head note it is there. On the top of the chapter it is clearly written interim and transitional. Last but not the least, that in the article itself, the modus operandi that how this article will cease to exist is incorporated in Article 370 itself. It says that by the presidential order, President can amend, modify, as well as can completely strike down only with a proviso. The proviso says that the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir has to give recommendation for that. We all know, because our founding fathers under the leadership of Baba Saheb Ambedkar ji, who was not for Article 370, you can read about his letters and all. He said that okay, I am accepting your view, I am making an interim provision, but I will add, I will put a procedure also that how it can be amended, how it can be removed, because it is an interim provisions. So he made that, and it was the clear understanding of all the people who participate in the constitution making process that after the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, which will adopt this Article 370, once that job is over, they will recommend that this article should cease to exist. But as we know, from 1950 to 56, much things changed in Jammu and Kashmir because of their personal reasons, political reasons. I will not delve into that because I am going to talk about Article 370. So that recommendation was not done. And then it started growing, no, now the recommendation is not done. So what to do with that? And that's why we see today Article 370 in our constitution. If you see, at that time there was no problem, there was no hesitation in the mind of any lawmaker or the people who participated in our Constituent Assembly debates and who made our constitution that it has to go. Otherwise, there are so many articles in the Indian Constitution. Have you ever seen which starts with interim provision? Have you ever seen in the article itself it is written how to remove this article? So if you read the Article 370 and you understand the genesis of Article 370, it clearly speaks three things. One, it has no special provision because a special provision does not relate to Article 370. It relates to Article 371 and it is by 13th Amendment. Second, it does not confer any other rights except the expansion of the state list. Third, it talks about how it has to go, how it should be removed. And fourth, which is the most important, that what Constituent Assembly ought to have done, they have not done so because of the political reasons. But Constituent Assembly clearly spelled out three things of the Jammu and Kashmir. If you read section 3 of the Jammu Kashmir Constitution, which clearly says that Jammu and Kashmir is integral part of India and shall be integral part of India. So it talks about clearly that Jammu and Kashmir is, that means before the Constituent Assembly also, it was integral part of India because of the 26th October 1947 signature on the instrument of accession. So the Jammu and Kashmir Constitution has categorically spelled three things which I would like to share with all of you. One was section 3, which talks about that Jammu and Kashmir is integral part of India and shall be integral part of India. So even before the Jammu Kashmir Constituent Assembly adopted Indian Constitution, they accepted that after 26 October 1947, Jammu and Kashmir is integral part of India. Section 5 of the Jammu and Kashmir Constitution clearly stipulates that the corresponding to whatever is written in instrument of accession, that is the defense, telecommunication as well as foreign policy, the parliament supremacy is there. And last, that section 3 and 5 cannot be amended. That is the basic feature of the Jammu and Kashmir Constitution. It also stipulates in their preamble that Jammu and Kashmir is integral part of India. So Jammu and Kashmir has categorically, their Constituent Assembly accepted the supremacy of the Indian Constitution. So that constitution is not a sovereign constitution. That clearly stipulates that Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part. Maybe on the legal position that who will make law on which subject, that can be debated. But as far as the integration of Jammu and Kashmir on all subjects except some law making which was in the concurrent list, there was nothing. So what I would like to conclude on this aspect, that as far as the constitutional position of the Jammu and Kashmir, you have to read three things. In my view, Article 1, which says that Jammu and Kashmir is integral part and it is listed in the list of states. Then you have to read Article 370 whole. Don't go by the discussion that who talked, what Nehru said, what Sheikh said. That is not material at all. So first is Article 1 of the Indian Constitution. Second is Article 370 of the Indian Constitution. And then you have to go through the Jammu and Kashmir Constitution and you have to read in totality their preamble, Section 6, Section 3, Section 5, Section 147, and it makes very clear that Jammu and Kashmir constitutionally is as good as any other state in this country, whether it is Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra. Jammu and Kashmir, only that the legislative mechanism was expanded. However, the problem started after 1950 because of some reasons, and in my second part I am going to say that implication of Article 370 in that there was a biggest constitutional fraud taken place in the country, which I am going to talk about in my second part, that is addition of Article 35 capital A and what all has happened because of the addition of Article 35 capital A and how it has led. So in the end I wish to say that if you want to understand and if you want to know about the Article 370, you have to read these documents, the Constitution of India, Article 1, Article 370, and then Jammu and Kashmir Constitution. I think that will make it clear. You all are here if you go through these documents. And please, my last suggestion will be, don't go by the statement of leaders. It has no value in the law. Go by the documents. And what are the documents? I would like to say, Indian Independence Act, read. Pakistan doesn't say that Jammu Kashmir is their part because they are 4 states. If they say that, means they are opposing the Indian Independence Act by which their birth has taken place. So read Instrument of Accession, read Indian Constitution, read Jammu and Kashmir Constitution. That's all. What has happened between the leaders on the table, we have nothing to say. So let us go by the documents, and as per the documents, Jammu and Kashmir is integral part and shall be integral part of India, and it is as good as any other state. However, there is a proviso that because of the constitutional fraud, some anomaly has been created, which I am going to talk about my second part. Thank you.